What if I told you that the secret to true happiness isn't what you think it is? That everything you've been chasing, money, success, achievements, material possessions, might actually be taking you further away from genuine fulfillment? Today, I'm going to share with you the life-changing insights from one of the most powerful books on happiness ever written, Build the Life You Want, by Oprah Winfrey and Harvard professor Arthur C. Brooks. Welcome back to Book Bloom, where we dive deep into books that have the power to transform your life. I'm your host, and today we're going on a journey that will challenge everything you believe about happiness. This isn't just another self-help book review. This is a complete roadmap to building the life you've always dreamed of. Before we dive into the meat of this incredible book, let me tell you why this collaboration is so extraordinary. On one side, you have Oprah Winfrey, a woman who has interviewed thousands of people, explored human nature for decades, and has built an empire while maintaining her authentic self. On the other side, you have Arthur C. Brooks, a Harvard professor who has spent his career studying the science of happiness, analyzing data, and understanding what truly makes people flourish. This isn't just opinion or feel-good advice. This is a combination of lived wisdom and rigorous scientific research. Brooks brings the academic credibility, while Oprah brings the human experience and the ability to connect with people's hearts. Together, they've created something truly special. The book was published in 2023, and it's already changing lives around the world. What makes this book different is that it doesn't promise you'll be happy all the time, because that's not realistic. Instead, it teaches you how to build a life where happiness is achievable and sustainable, even when facing life's inevitable challenges. The core philosophy: redefining happiness. Let's start with something that might shock you. The authors argue that our entire understanding of happiness is wrong. We live in a culture that tells us happiness is about feeling good all the time, avoiding pain, and maximizing pleasure. But this is actually a recipe for misery. True happiness, according to Brooks and Winfrey, isn't about constant pleasure or avoiding negative emotions. It's about having a rich, meaningful life that includes the full spectrum of human experience. They introduce us to three components of genuine happiness: enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. Enjoyment is different from mere pleasure. Pleasure is passive. It's what you get from eating ice cream or watching TV. Enjoyment is active. It's pleasure plus intention plus social connection. When you share a meal with loved ones, you're not just experiencing the pleasure of food, you're creating enjoyment through connection and presence. Satisfaction comes from accomplishment, from working towards something meaningful and achieving it. It's the feeling you get after completing a challenging project or learning a new skill. It's earned, not given. Meaning is perhaps the most important component. It's about serving something larger than yourself, having a sense of purpose, and feeling that your life matters in the grand scheme of things. Here's what's revolutionary about this approach. You don't need to eliminate negative emotions to be happy. In fact, trying to do so will make you miserable. The goal is to build a life where you can handle whatever comes your way while still finding joy, purpose, and connection. The power of emotional self-management. Now, let's talk about something that will change how you deal with difficult emotions forever. Brooks and Winfrey introduce the concept of emotional self-management, and this is where the book gets really practical. They start by explaining that emotions are like weather. They come and go, and while you can't control them completely, you can learn to work with them effectively. The key is not to suppress emotions or pretend they don't exist, but to acknowledge them and respond skillfully. One of the most powerful techniques they share is called emotional labeling. When you feel a strong emotion, instead of being overwhelmed by it, you take a step back and literally label what you're feeling. I'm feeling anxious about this presentation. I'm experiencing anger about this situation. This simple act of labeling creates distance between you and the emotion, making it easier to respond rather than react. They also introduce the concept of emotional granularity. Instead of just saying, "I feel bad," you learn to identify the specific emotion. Are you disappointed, frustrated, worried, sad? The more precisely you can identify what you're feeling, the better you can address it. Another crucial technique is what they call emotional surfing. Just like a surfer rides a wave without being crushed by it, you can learn to experience intense emotions without being overwhelmed. You acknowledge the emotion, feel it fully, and then let it pass. This prevents you from making impulsive decisions based on temporary emotional states. The authors also discuss the importance of emotional editing. This doesn't mean changing how you feel, but rather choosing how long you want to hold on to certain emotions. You might feel angry about something, and that's valid, but you don't have to carry that anger for weeks or months. You can choose to process it and let it go. Perhaps most importantly, they emphasize that emotional self-management isn't about becoming emotionally numb or always being positive. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent, understanding your emotions, accepting them, and using them as information rather than being controlled by them. The 4 pillars of happiness. Now we come to the heart of the book, the 4 pillars of happiness. Brooks and Winfrey argue that all genuinely happy people invest in these 4 areas consistently. These aren't just nice-to-haves, they're essentials for a fulfilling life. Pillar 1. Family. The first pillar is family, but not in the way you might think. The authors define family broadly. It's not just blood relatives, but the people who are committed to you for the long haul, who love you unconditionally, and who you can count on in times of crisis. Here's what's beautiful about their approach. They acknowledge that no family is perfect. In fact, they argue that perfect families don't exist, and that's okay. What matters is commitment, love, and the willingness to work through difficulties together. They share practical advice on how to strengthen family bonds. One key insight is the importance of shared experiences and traditions. These don't have to be elaborate. They could be as simple as a weekly family dinner, a daily check-in call, or an annual camping trip. What matters is consistency and intentionality. The authors also address the challenge of difficult family members. They don't suggest cutting people off unless there's abuse involved, but rather learning to manage these relationships with love and boundaries. They emphasize that you can love someone while not accepting toxic behavior. For those who don't have traditional families, Brooks and Winfrey talk about creating chosen families, groups of people who provide the same support, love, and commitment that biological families ideally provide. These relationships require the same investment and commitment as biological family relationships. One of the most powerful insights here is that family relationships require active work. They don't just happen naturally. You have to invest time, energy, and emotion into these relationships consistently. But the return on this investment is immeasurable. Stable, loving family relationships are one of the strongest predictors of life satisfaction. Pillar 2. Friendship. The second pillar is friendship, and the authors make a compelling case that friendship is one of the most undervalued aspects of happiness in our culture. We often prioritize career advancement or romantic relationships over friendships, but research shows that strong friendships are crucial for both happiness and health. Brooks and Winfrey distinguish between different types of friendships. There are deal friends, people you interact with for specific purposes, like work colleagues or gym buddies. Then there are real friends, people who genuinely care about you as a person, who you can be vulnerable with, and who will be there for you in good times and bad. The quality of friendships matters more than quantity. Having 3 or 4 deep, meaningful friendships is far more valuable than having dozens of superficial connections. The authors encourage readers to invest deeply in a smaller number of relationships rather than spreading themselves thin. They also address the challenges of maintaining friendships in adulthood. Unlike childhood, where friendships often form naturally through proximity and shared activities, adult friendships require more intentional effort. You have to actively reach out, make plans, and prioritize these relationships despite busy schedules. One practical tip they share is the importance of regular contact. This doesn't mean you need to talk every day, but maintaining consistent communication, whether through calls, texts, or in-person meetings, keeps the friendship alive and strong. The authors also discuss the role of vulnerability in friendship. True friendship requires the courage to be authentic, to share your struggles as well as your successes, and to support others through their challenges. This vulnerability creates the deep bonds that make friendships so valuable. Work. The third pillar is work, but again, not in the way most people think about it. This isn't about climbing the corporate ladder or maximizing your income. It's about finding work that serves others and gives you a sense of purpose. Brooks and Winfrey argue that meaningful work has 3 characteristics. It uses your skills and talents, it serves others, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment. Notice that money isn't on this list. While financial security is important, it's not what makes work fulfilling. They share stories of people who found deep satisfaction in various types of work, from teachers and nurses to entrepreneurs and artists. What these people had in common wasn't their job titles or salaries, but the sense that their work mattered and made a difference in the world. The authors also address the reality that not everyone can love their job. If you're in a situation where you need to work for financial reasons but don't find your job fulfilling, they suggest finding ways to serve others and use your talents outside of work. This might mean volunteering, pursuing a creative hobby, or finding small ways to help others in your current role. One key insight is that meaningful work often involves some level of difficulty or challenge. The most fulfilling work isn't necessarily the easiest work. It's work that stretches you, that requires you to grow and develop, and that creates something valuable for others. They also emphasize the importance of earning your success. Meaningful work involves effort, skill development, and perseverance. Shortcuts might provide temporary pleasure, but they don't create the deep satisfaction that comes from earned achievement. Pillar 4. Faith. The fourth pillar is faith, and this is where the authors might surprise you. They're not talking exclusively about religious faith, although that can be part of it. They're talking about any belief system that connects you to something larger than yourself. Faith, in their definition, is about transcendence, the recognition that there's something bigger and more important than your individual concerns and desires. This might be God, nature, humanity, justice, beauty, or any number of other transcendent values. Why is this so important for happiness? Because it provides perspective. When you're connected to something larger than yourself, your daily problems and concerns don't feel as overwhelming. You have a sense of meaning and purpose that goes beyond your immediate circumstances. Faith also provides comfort and strength during difficult times. When you believe in something greater than yourself, you have a source of hope and resilience that can carry you through life's inevitable challenges. The authors share examples of different types of faith. For some people, it's traditional religious belief. For others, it's a deep connection to nature or a commitment to social justice. What matters isn't the specific form of faith, but the sense of connection to something transcendent. They also address the challenges that many people face with faith in our modern, secular world. You don't need to believe in a traditional God to have faith. You can find transcendence in art, in service to others, in the beauty of nature, or in the pursuit of truth and justice. One practical way to develop faith is through practices that connect you to something larger than yourself. This might be meditation, prayer, time in nature, volunteer work, or engagement with art and beauty. The key is regularly engaging with whatever gives you that sense of transcendence. Practical strategies and exercises. Now let's get into the practical strategies that Brooks and Winfrey share for building each of these pillars in your life. This isn't just theory. These are actionable steps you can take starting today. Building stronger family relationships. First, conduct a family audit. List the people in your life who truly qualify as family, those who are committed to you for the long haul. Then honestly assess the quality of these relationships. Are you investing enough time and energy? Are there unresolved conflicts that need addressing? Create family traditions and rituals. These don't have to be elaborate. They could be as simple as a weekly phone call with a parent, a monthly dinner with siblings, or an annual vacation with your closest friends. The key is consistency and intentionality. Practice forgiveness. The authors emphasize that holding on to grudges and resentments destroys family relationships. This doesn't mean accepting abuse or toxic behavior, but it does mean learning to let go of minor slights and disappointments. Communicate openly and honestly. Make it a practice to express appreciation, address conflicts directly but kindly, and share your authentic feelings with family friendships. Start by identifying your real friends versus your deal friends. Then make a conscious effort to invest more deeply in your real friendships. This might mean scheduling regular coffee dates, planning trips together, or simply being more present when you're with these people. Practice vulnerability. Share your struggles as well as your successes. Ask for help when you need it. Be there for your friends when they need support. Make friendship a priority. In our busy lives, it's easy to let friendships slide, but the authors argue that friendships should be treated as seriously as any other important relationship. Put friend dates on your calendar and honor them. Be intentional about making new friends. If you're lacking in close friendships, actively seek out opportunities to meet like-minded people. Join clubs, take classes, volunteer for causes you care about. Finding meaningful work. If you're not satisfied with your current work situation, start by identifying your core values and talents. What do you care about? What are you good at? How can you use these things to serve others? Look for ways to make your current work more meaningful. This might mean finding opportunities to mentor colleagues, improving processes that help customers, or simply approaching your work with a service mindset. Consider career changes if necessary. The authors acknowledge that sometimes you need to make significant changes to find meaningful work. This might mean going back to school, changing careers, or starting your own business. Don't wait for permission to do meaningful work. You can start serving others and using your talents right now, even if it's not through your job. Volunteer, start a side project, or find small ways to help others in your current role. Developing faith. Start by exploring what gives you a sense of transcendence. This might be nature, art, music, service to others, or traditional religious practices. Pay attention to moments when you feel connected to something larger than yourself. Develop regular practices that connect you to your sense of faith. This might be meditation, prayer, time in nature, reading inspirational literature, or engaging in creative activities. Find community with others who share your faith or values. This might be a religious congregation, a hiking group, a volunteer organization, or any group that connects you to transcendent values. Practice gratitude regularly. Gratitude naturally connects us to something larger than ourselves and helps us recognize the gifts and beauty in our lives. Overcoming common obstacles. Now let's address some of the common obstacles that prevent people from building happiness through these 4 pillars. Brooks and Winfrey are realistic about the challenges you'll face, and they provide practical advice for overcoming them. Obstacle 1. Time constraints. One of the most common excuses people give for not investing in the 4 pillars is lack of time. The authors argue that this is rarely about actual time scarcity and more about priorities. You make time for what you value. They suggest conducting a time audit. Track how you spend your time for a week, and you'll likely discover that you're spending significant time on activities that don't contribute to your happiness or well-being. Social media, television, and other passive activities often consume hours that could be invested in relationships, meaningful work, or faith practices. The solution isn't to eliminate all leisure activities, but to be more intentional about how you spend your time. Make conscious choices about what deserves your attention and energy. Obstacle 2. Fear of vulnerability. Many people struggle with the vulnerability required for deep relationships and meaningful work. It's safer to keep things superficial, but superficial relationships and work don't provide the deep satisfaction that comes from the 4 pillars. The authors encourage readers to start small. You don't have to share your deepest secrets with everyone, but you can gradually become more open and authentic in your relationships. Practice sharing something slightly more personal than you usually would, and notice how it deepens your connections. Remember that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. It takes courage to be authentic, and most people will respect and respond positively to genuine openness. 3. Past hurts and disappointments. Many people have been hurt by family members, friends, or work situations in the past, and these experiences can make it difficult to invest in the 4 pillars again. The authors acknowledge that this is real and valid, but they argue that allowing past hurts to prevent future happiness is ultimately self-defeating. They emphasize the importance of healing and processing past traumas, possibly with the help of a therapist or counselor. But they also argue that you can't let past hurts control your future. You have to be willing to risk again, to trust again, and to invest in relationships and meaningful work despite the possibility of disappointment. This doesn't mean being naive or ignoring red flags. It means being wise about who you trust and invest in, while still remaining open to connection and meaning. Obstacle 4. Societal pressure and expectations. Our culture often promotes values that are contrary to the 4 pillars. We're told to prioritize individual achievement over relationships, to chase money and status over meaning, and to avoid difficulty and challenge rather than embrace them. The authors encourage readers to resist these cultural messages and to define success on their own terms. This might mean turning down a job promotion that would harm your family relationships, or choosing a lower-paying job that provides more meaning and purpose. It also means being prepared for criticism from others who don't understand your choices. Not everyone will support your decision to prioritize relationships and meaning over traditional markers of success. Obstacle 5. Perfectionism. Many people don't start investing in the 4 pillars because they feel they need to do it perfectly. They think they need to be the perfect family member, friend, worker, or believer before they can begin. The authors emphasize that perfection is not the goal. The goal is progress, not perfection. You don't need to be perfect to start building better relationships or finding more meaningful work. You just need to start where you are and keep moving forward. They also remind us that setbacks are normal and expected. You'll have difficult days, relationship conflicts, and moments of doubt. This doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Personal stories and case studies. Throughout the book, Brooks and Winfrey share powerful personal stories and case studies that illustrate these principles in action. Let me share some of the most impactful ones. Oprah's journey with family. Oprah shares her own struggles with family relationships, including her difficult relationship with her mother and her journey to create a chosen family of people who truly support and love her. She talks about how she learned to set boundaries with toxic family members while still maintaining love and compassion. One of the most powerful insights she shares is about forgiveness. She talks about how holding on to resentment was poisoning her own happiness, and how learning to forgive, not for the other person's benefit, but for her own, was crucial for her well-being. She also discusses how she built her chosen family, including her relationship with Gayle King, which has been one of the most stable and supportive relationships in her life for over 40 years. Arthur's research on loneliness. Brooks shares research on the loneliness epidemic, particularly among older adults. He tells the story of a man named James, who was deeply lonely after his wife died, despite having children and grandchildren. The issue wasn't lack of people in his life, but lack of deep, meaningful connections. James began volunteering at a local school, reading to children. This simple act of service gave him purpose and connected him to something larger than himself. It also led to friendships with other volunteers and with the teachers at the school. Within a year, James had transformed from isolated and depressed to engaged and fulfilled. This story illustrates how the four pillars work together. James found faith through service, built new friendships through his volunteer work, and created a chosen family with his fellow volunteers and the school community. The executive who found meaning. The book shares the story of a successful corporate executive who had everything our culture says should make you happy: a high salary, prestigious position, and all the material comforts money can buy. But she was miserable. She realized that her work wasn't serving others or using her talents in a meaningful way. She was just making rich people richer. So she took a significant pay cut to work for a nonprofit organization that provided education to underprivileged children. Her friends and colleagues thought she was crazy, but she found a sense of purpose and fulfillment that had been missing from her life. She also discovered that having less money but more meaning made her happier than she'd ever been. Rebuilt their marriage. Brooks and Winfrey share the story of a couple whose marriage was falling apart. They had grown distant from each other, were constantly fighting, and were considering divorce. Instead of giving up, they decided to apply the principles from the book to their relationship. They started by working on emotional self-management, learning to identify and express their feelings more effectively. They also began to see their marriage as a family unit that required intentional investment and care. They created new traditions and rituals, like a weekly date night and a daily check-in conversation. They also worked on forgiveness, letting go of years of accumulated resentments and hurts. It wasn't easy or quick, but over time, they rebuilt their relationship into something stronger and more fulfilling than it had ever been. Their story shows that it's possible to repair damaged relationships when both people are committed to the work. The science behind the principles. Now let's dive into the scientific research that supports these principles. Brooks brings his academic background to bear in this section, sharing fascinating research from psychology, neuroscience, and social science. The neuroscience of happiness research shows that happiness isn't just a fleeting emotion. It actually changes your brain. People who practice gratitude, engage in meaningful relationships, and pursue purposeful work show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with positive emotions and resilience. Studies using brain imaging have shown that people who regularly practice emotional self-management techniques have better emotional regulation and are less likely to be overwhelmed by negative emotions. This isn't just about feeling better. It's about actually rewiring your brain for greater happiness and resilience. The social science of relationships. The Harvard study of adult development, which has followed participants for over 80 years, provides compelling evidence for the importance of relationships. The study found that people with strong, supportive relationships live longer, are healthier, and report higher levels of life satisfaction. Interestingly, the quality of relationships matters more than quantity. People with a few close, supportive relationships are happier than those with many superficial connections. This supports the book's emphasis on investing deeply in real friendships rather than spreading yourself thin across many casual acquaintances. The psychology of meaningful work. Research on job satisfaction shows that autonomy, mastery, and purpose are the three key factors that make work fulfilling. Money and status, while important for basic needs, don't correlate strongly with job satisfaction once basic needs are met. Studies of people who find their work meaningful show that they're more engaged, more productive, and more satisfied with their lives overall. This meaning can come from serving others, using your talents, or contributing to something larger than yourself. The benefits of faith and transcendence. Research on religious and spiritual practices shows significant benefits for both mental and physical health. People who regularly engage in practices that connect them to something larger than themselves report lower levels of anxiety and depression, better immune function, and greater resilience in the face of challenges. This isn't necessarily about specific religious beliefs. Studies show that any practice that provides a sense of transcendence and connection to something greater can provide these benefits. The physiology of emotional self-management. Research on emotional regulation shows that people who practice emotional self-management techniques have lower levels of stress hormones like cortisol and higher levels of positive neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. Studies have also shown that emotional labeling, the simple act of identifying and naming your emotions, reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. Implementing the principles, a step-by-step guide. Now let's get practical. How do you actually implement these principles in your life? Here's a step-by-step guide based on the book's recommendations. Week 1-2, Assessment and Awareness. Start by conducting an honest assessment of your current life. Rate yourself on a scale of 1-10 in each of the 4 pillars. Family. How strong and supportive are your closest relationships? Friendship. Do you have deep, meaningful friendships? Work. Does your work provide meaning and purpose? Faith. Do you have a sense of connection to something larger than yourself? Also assess your emotional self-management skills. How well do you handle difficult emotions? Do you react impulsively or respond thoughtfully? 3 to 4. Emotional self-management practice. Begin implementing emotional self-management techniques. Start with emotional labeling. When you feel a strong emotion, take a moment to identify and name it specifically. Practice this several times a day. Begin keeping an emotion journal. Each evening, write down the main emotions you experienced that day and what triggered them. This will help you identify patterns and develop greater emotional awareness. Week 5-8, Family Focus. Spend the next month focusing on strengthening your family relationships. This might involve having deeper conversations with family members, addressing long-standing conflicts or resentments, creating new traditions or rituals, expressing appreciation and gratitude more regularly. If you don't have strong family relationships, begin building your chosen family by deepening existing friendships or seeking out new connections. Week 9-12, Friendship Development. Focus on building stronger friendships. This might involve reaching out to old friends you've lost touch with, being more vulnerable and authentic in your existing friendships, making new friends through activities or interests you're passionate about, prioritizing friendship by scheduling regular friend dates. Week 13-16, Work and Purpose. Examine your work life and look for ways to increase meaning and purpose. This might involve finding ways to serve others through your current work, developing new skills that align with your values, exploring career changes if necessary, engaging in meaningful volunteer work. Week 17-20, Faith and Transcendence. Explore practices that connect you to something larger than yourself. This might involve spending time in nature, engaging with art, music, or literature, exploring spiritual or religious practices, engaging in service to others. Week 21-24, Integration and Maintenance. Spend the final month integrating all 4 pillars into your daily life. Create a sustainable routine that allows you to invest in all 4 areas regularly. This might involve weekly family time, regular friend dates, daily meaningful work or service, regular faith or transcendence practices. Remember that building the life you want is an ongoing process, not a one-time event. You'll need to continue investing in the 4 pillars, adjusting your approach as circumstances change. As we wrap up this comprehensive exploration of Build the Life You Want, let's summarize the key takeaways that can transform your life. True happiness isn't about constant pleasure or avoiding negative emotions. It's about building a rich, meaningful life that includes enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. It's about developing the emotional skills to handle whatever life throws at you while maintaining your capacity for joy and connection. The 4 non-negotiables. The 4 pillars, family, friendship, work, and faith, aren't optional extras. They're the foundation of a fulfilling life. You don't need to be perfect in all 4 areas, but you need to be actively investing in all of them. The power of emotional intelligence. Learning to manage your emotions effectively is perhaps the most practical skill you can develop. It affects every area of your life and determines how well you can build and maintain the 4 pillars. The choice is yours. Perhaps the most empowering message of the book is that you have more control over your happiness than you might think. While you can't control everything that happens to you, you can control how you respond and what you choose to invest your time and energy in. It's never too late. No matter where you are in life, no matter what mistakes you've made or opportunities you've missed, you can start building the life you want today. The principles in this book work at any age and in any circumstances. The compound effect. Small, consistent actions in each of the 4 pillars compound over time to create significant changes in your life. You don't need to make dramatic changes overnight, just consistent, intentional investments in what matters most. Final thoughts and call to action. As I finish this deep dive into Build the Life You Want, I want to leave you with a challenge and an invitation. The challenge is this: don't let this be just another book review you watch and forget. The principles Brooks and Winfrey share aren't just interesting ideas. They're a roadmap to a more fulfilling life, but they only work if you actually apply them. Start today. Pick one of the 4 pillars that needs the most attention in your life and take one small action to strengthen it. Call a family member you haven't spoken to in a while. Reach out to an old friend. Look for ways to serve others through your work. Spend time in nature or engage in a practice that connects you to something larger than yourself. The invitation is to join a community of people who are committed to building lives of meaning, connection, and purpose. Subscribe to Book Bloom if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments which pillar you're going to focus on first. I also want to remind you that building the life you want is not a destination. It's a journey. There will be setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt. That's normal and expected. What matters is that you keep investing in what truly matters, keep growing in emotional intelligence, and keep building the relationships and work that give your life meaning. Remember, you have the power to build the life you want. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but it is possible. The research is clear, the principles are sound, and the tools are available. All that's left is for you to begin. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Build the Life You Want. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and keep building the life you want.